Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and welcome to this week's vlog. And today is a really fun one because in the spirit of Valentine's Day coming up, we are going to be playing Spin the Bottle. Except we're not going to be playing this game with other people. We're going to be playing it with books, and instead of kissing them, we're going to be reading them. Now, I did get this fun little Spin the Bottle game over the holidays, and I thought this would be perfect to utilize for a vlog during the month of February. I thought it would be super fun, super cute, so that's what we're doing today. And I made a circle of all the books that I'm going to be picking from. They are my January TBR books because I'm filming this in January so that you guys can see this vlog in February. But those are going to be the ones that I'm going to be choosing from, and we're going to put the bottle spinner in the middle, spin it, and then choose 3 books to read this week. I'm very excited to try this little game for the first time. I think it's so cute, so let's get into it. So here is the circle with the books, and most of these are on my January TBR except for The Housemaid. I did add this one to the circle because my hold from Libby for an audio came in this week, and I was planning on reading this one this month as well, and it just kind of like completed the circle in a nice way. So these are the books that we're going to be choosing from. Like I said, we have The Housemaid. I have the first book in the Zodiac Academy series, The Awakening. We have Last Call at the Local by Sarah Grunder Ruiz. I also have Onyx Storm, and then Silver Elite by Dani Francis, and then Branded by Saffron A. Kent, Game Changer by Rachel Reed, and the Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. So I have put my little spin the bottle spinner right there in the middle, and that's what we're going to be spinning, and we're going to be choosing 3. So let's get started. This little bottle is kind of small, but hopefully you can see it. So let's get started with doing our first spin. Ooh. So that is Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. So for my first book this week, I'm going to be reading the Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole, and this is the first book in the Gods and Monsters series. This book has been on my TBR and on my bookshelves for quite a while now, and I do keep choosing it for my TBR, but it's kind of an intimidating read for me because I think it was Sarah Caroli who was reading this, and she said that like this book looks short and that it is like technically 500 pages or something like that, almost 500 pages, but it takes a very long time to read because it's like super dense, and something about the word count being like equivalent to like a 700 page book or something like that. I'm not really sure, but we'll see how it goes. But I'm still really excited to read this because I'm hearing like so many good reviews about this book. It's like on a lot of people's like God tier list, and I've just been kind of putting it off because I know that it's going to take a long time to read. So we'll see how long this one actually takes, but I am very excited to read it, and I'm glad that I'm actually reading it for a vlog. Okay, now let's do spin number 2. Nope, that landed in the same spot, so let's do it again. Ooh, okay, so that landed on Silver Elite. Okay, so for book 2, we got Silver Elite by Dani Francis. This is another one that I've been kind of putting off because I think the hype around it has kind of like made me not want to read it right away. But I am excited to read this because it does have like, well, it technically has like mixed reviews. I've seen mixed reviews, and I'm really hoping that I'm on the side of the people that do actually really enjoy this book because it's supposed to be kind of like a dystopian trials, kind of like enemies to lovers thing, which sounds like it's up my alley. I don't know, but it's another one that I'm glad I'm reading for a vlog, and I'm glad that I'm reading it now. And now for our final spin. Okay, we have Zodiac Academy. Okay. The bottle has spoken, and we have our 3rd romantasy read for this vlog, I guess, because now that I have 3 romantasies, 3 fantasies, and not a single romance, I have a feeling that this vlog is going to take me longer than a week to film. I feel like some of these books are going to take longer than like 2 days to read, but our final book for the vlog is Zodiac Academy, The Awakening, which is the first book in the Zodiac Academy series by Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. And as with the other 2, I'm very happy that this one got chosen because this is one that I'm for sure reading in January because I am buddy reading this series with like a group of people. So this is one that I'm for sure going to be reading in January, so I might as well vlog it, share with you guys my thoughts. This is the first book in the series, so actually all of these are the first book in a series, so I'm just very excited to get into this world. So these are the 3 books that we're reading in this vlog. I guess it's a full romantasy reading vlog, which is great because I'm totally in my romantasy era, and I'm very excited to get started with these. I'm not sure which one I'm going to pick up first, but I'm thinking maybe Silver Elite, but I guess you'll find out in the next clip. so I have an update for you guys on Silver Elite by Dani Francis, and it's been a couple of days. I've been reading and I made it to chapter 26, page 242, which is kind of like about the halfway point of the book. And this one is so fast paced. I'm actually really enjoying it. There honestly hasn't been a moment where I'm bored in this book. So this one follows the main character, Wren Darlington, and she's basically an orphan because I guess this bomb went off in this society, like in this world, and due to that explosion, some people got modified and now they're called like mods or the modified or aberrant, and they all got like a different power from it. Okay, and other people did not. Other people just remained normal human without any kind of like powers. Okay, now most of the modified people who do get powers, their blood, their veins basically tend to glow silver when they use those powers. So that's kind of how they can tell who's modified and who isn't. But Wren is a little bit special because she is a modified and she does have powers. However, her veins don't glow. You know, like you can't tell when she's using her powers and when she's not. So we don't really know why that is, but it's like a special kind of mutation that she does not share with other modifieds. Okay, now her parents were also modified, and when she was young they were killed, and her uncle had saved her. Her uncle had taken her into this place called the Blackwoods, where like it's just night and dark the entire time, and he's basically hiding her, teaching her how to fight, how to shoot, how to do all these things, and how to defend herself. And so she's been basically growing up in the Blackwoods. And then they moved into Ward Z, which is kind of like a farming, ranching kind of community. And ever since then, they've just been ranchers. Okay, so that's kind of how like they're in hiding, because her uncle is also kind of like on the run and he needs to be hidden as well. And her uncle has always taught her to like not call attention to herself, not be like super boisterous with like how well she can fight, how well she can shoot, because apparently she's like really good at shooting and like really great at marksmanship. And he's always been like instilling in her not to kind of like show off or anything like that, to stay hidden, because you know she is technically a modified, and when the government finds the modified, they basically execute them. Well, one day when she's in town, this animal starts attacking. I think it was like a white coyote or something, and he starts attacking this group of children, and he's attacking this little boy, and she basically feels the need to save him, and from a distance she shoots an arrow and kills this coyote. And as you can imagine, that's not great because it calls attention to her. And then the next day the government people come to her ranch to kind of like see her shoot, like watch her shoot and see how good she is at it. And then they pull her into the program, like into the training program of being like in the military, where she basically doesn't want to stay. She doesn't want to be in the program. She doesn't want to be in the like silver block or anything like that. She just wants to be a rancher. She wants to go home, but they won't allow it because Cross Redden, who is the general's son, he kind of sees something special about her and he doesn't want to lose her. He doesn't want to let her go. So he's making sure that she stays in the program. And so she's kind of like going through that. So that's kind of what she's doing right now. There is another thing about their powers that's kind of interesting, I thought, because they can have like mental communication with other people, other modified people, and they don't necessarily have to know who the other person is. Like once a bond is kind of like initiated between two people, they end up having this connection, like this permanent connection where they can like mind speak to each other, which I thought was very interesting. And she has this childhood friend named Wolf that she's been speaking to since she was a little child, but she's never actually met him because her uncle kind of like forbid it because, you know, it was too dangerous for her to actually meet him. So they've just kind of like been friends in their heads and not really telling anybody about it. Yeah, so right now she's in the military program. She doesn't want to be there. She's kind of a badass undercover because she's kind of pretending that she's bad at things, which I think is really interesting. I love the fact that she's like super capable, but she's like not showing it. And most people don't know how capable she really is. And so far, I think the book is really good. She's making friends. She's making enemies. There's like a little bit of a found family thing happening. But of course, she has to stay undercover because she knows that if any of them found out that she's a modified, she'd get executed, you know, so she can't really fully trust anybody. I really like how fast paced this is. Like it's moving really quickly for a fantasy book, and there's not like that much world building in it. It's not like a super complicated world. It's just a dystopian set in like our current world after like a disaster happens, but like the magic system, like the fact that some of them have magic, I think that's super interesting. And the types of magic that they have is kind of interesting to me because she does have quite a few powers. She's a mind reader, a projector, an insider, and I think a telepath. And an insider is essentially somebody who can control the actions of other people, but she's not very good at doing that. She's just kind of still learning how to do that. She's not very strong in that area of her powers, but she is very strong in the other areas, and she's also very good at like being a marksman and a shooter and like hitting her target and everything like that. So I'm really liking how badass and like capable she is. I think that's so fun to read about. Like those are my favorite types of female main characters, where they're like really smart, really intelligent, and also very capable physically, especially in a fantasy book, so I'm loving it so far. I like the writing as well because it's not super complicated. Like nothing about this book is super complicated, so it's more kind of like a fun fantasy read, like a fun romantasy read. And I'm excited for it to get into like the romance part of it because she is having some attraction to Cross, but they haven't like crossed that line or anything like that because they're technically enemies because he's the one who like is forcing her to stay in the program and she doesn't want to be there. So I'm excited for that to change and I'm ready to see some romance happening between them. So I'm expecting to be done with this book in a couple of days because it's a very fast read, and then I will give you guys my final update and my final thoughts when I'm done with it. So it's been a couple of days and I finished Silver Elite. So this was actually pretty fun. I actually kind of like this book and I am excited to read book 2, but this is not anything groundbreaking, okay? Like the world building in this, not super amazing. Like it is a dystopian, so there really isn't that much world building in general, and the writing is not super complicated. It's very straightforward. Everything about this book is very straightforward, and there are a couple of twists in this that I completely predicted. So I had a theory about wolves specifically, and I don't remember exactly at what point I came up with it, but it was pretty early in the book, and I was thinking to myself, like, I will be kind of disappointed if my theory comes true, like if my theory turns out to be true. And guess what? I was a little bit disappointed because my theory turned out to be true. I feel like the author should have saved that twist for like a future book in the series, but it is what it is. It's fine. The other thing that kind of bothered me about this book was that towards the end she makes a decision to do something that is just like the dumbest thing she could possibly do. Her uncle has gone to great lengths to protect her while he was alive, and he's gone through great lengths to like do something to like conceal her and stuff like that, and she just completely undoes that in like one fell swoop, and I honestly did not understand it. I did not understand why she thought that would be a good idea to do the thing that she did. So that annoyed me a little bit, but besides that I actually had a pretty good time with this book. I really liked the setting. Some parts of the world were pretty interesting, like the fact that they had the wards and the Blacklands and stuff like that. Like the Blacklands were very interesting to me. I liked that aspect of it. I really liked her as a main character besides that one decision that she makes, and the romance was just okay for me. I didn't really absolutely love the romance because it just didn't feel like they had much of a romance, to be honest with you. It felt more of like a friends with benefits kind of thing, and I feel like now that's going to change going further into the series, but in this book particularly the romance wasn't super heavy. It was just kind of like a physical thing that they were having for the most part, which I could take it or leave it, you know? Also, Cross has changed throughout the story. I feel like he's really lost his edge towards the end of the book, whereas like in the beginning of the book he was like a very solid like edgy character, but then like towards the end of the book he kind of like loses that edge and he kind of stopped being that interesting to me. But overall I still had a really good time with this book. It was fast paced, it was fun, it was easy to read, and I'm definitely going to be continuing the series. So I think my final rating for this one is going to be 4 stars. I'm just taking 1 star off because I didn't love the romance and I didn't love that one decision that she made, but other than that I really liked this book. Update on Zodiac Academy because I read quite a bit without doing an update. I'm more than halfway through. I'm on chapter 16, and this one is definitely like kind of like gripping and like a really fast read. So this one essentially follows 2 twins, Tori and Darcy Vega, and their parents died when they were little, and I think it was like in a fire or something like that, and they went into foster care. Now they're 18, so they're basically being like kicked out of foster care and they have to live on their own, and they're kind of like struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling to make any money, and they've kind of resorted to committing crimes in order to like make some extra cash to pay for rent. So one day, just out of the blue, this guy shows up. His name is Professor Orion, and he basically informs them that they're changelings and that they're actually fae, not human, and they have magical powers. And they have this huge inheritance waiting for them in the fae world, and all they have to do in order to claim it is basically go to Zodiac Academy, which covers room and board, so they don't have any expenses. They just basically have to go to the school and graduate, okay? So of course, because they're like struggling for for money and they're used to taking risks, they decide to take the deal and they go to Zodiac Academy. He takes them to this Fae land, and now they're basically in this school where they basically have to go to classes, learn their powers, and they're kind of like discovering this world as you as the reader are discovering this world, which is one thing that I really like about this book because it doesn't have a lot of world building up front. You're kind of just like learning everything along with the twins, you know? So like you're learning it for the first time, that they're learning it for the first time, and it's not like this giant heap of information that's thrown at you as the reader, which I'm really appreciating. So the world that they're taken to is called Solaria, and they learn that their parents were actually the king and the queen of Solaria, okay? And they are actually the next in line for the throne, and they essentially have to reclaim their throne because the celestial heirs, which are sons of like other affluent families of society, have then been kind of like put in line for the throne, you know? So essentially these four celestial heirs are supposed to be taking over the throne, but now that Darcy and Tori are like back in the Fae land, back in Solaria, they can essentially be the queens and take over the throne and reclaim their throne, okay? But everyone around them is kind of divided because some people want the celestial heirs to take over the throne because they've been trained for it. They've lived their entire life like knowing the land and knowing their powers and like knowing all these things. Whereas Darcy and Tori are just like kind of like newbies and they just like come in and don't really know anything. So they don't trust that they're going to be good rulers. So the people that are against them are basically like harassing them and bullying them in the school and doing all these things in order to try to get them to leave. But they're pretty stubborn and they've got a pretty tough skin because, you know, they've been in foster care their entire lives. And so far they're handling it pretty well. But they do also have some allies. There is the Ass Club, which is, what did it stand for? I forget what it stood for. Almighty Sovereign Society. And that club is led by Geraldine, which I love Geraldine because she's hilarious. And those people, part of that society, are kind of like in favor of the queens. So they're like supporting them. Another really interesting thing about this world is that everybody also has an order and they don't know what their order is. They have to kind of figure out what their order is. They could be either like vampire, werewolf, siren, dragon. There's like unicorns. There's like all sorts of different orders that they could be in, and they haven't figured out their orders yet. So I'm curious to find out what that is. Also, these girls are like super powerful because they're like, you know, like the next in line to be queens. So they have like extra powers that most people don't. Like most of the Fae only have like one or two elemental powers. And during the awakening, which is like the ceremony where they discover what their elemental power is, they discover that they have more than other people. So I find that really, really cool. So far I'm really liking it. And everybody said that this is kind of like a bully romance, but it's kind of not though. Like in my opinion, I don't think it is because it's very similar to The Cruel Prince. Like if you've read The Cruel Prince, you know that like in that world, like the Fae are just like cruel in general. And they love practical jokes and like everybody's like in charge of themselves, and like if you can't handle it, you can't cut it, like you're out basically, you know, like nobody's there to defend you, you're kind of like on your own. And it's like their nature to just be really, really mean and play these cruel practical jokes. So that's kind of like what's happening here. Like the entire school is basically doing that to them, or at least the people that are against them is doing that to them. But it's not just like the romantic interests that are doing that to them, you know what I mean? So in that sense, it's like very, very similar to The Cruel Prince. And I don't think it's necessarily a bully romance because there hasn't really been much romance in this yet. They are showing a little bit of like attraction with the celestial heirs. And because the Fae are like really, really beautiful and like just like in general, like very kind of like alluring, these girls are definitely like pulled into that. Like they're very attracted to that, as you know, you would expect. So we've had a lot of that, but so far there hasn't really been any romance in my opinion. So I wouldn't necessarily call this particular book a bully romance, but we'll see how it continues with the rest of the series. Maybe there is going to be more romance in the next book, and we'll see if like, you know, the way that they treat them changes. But so far I think they're just being bullied, but like by everybody and not particularly just in the romance. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. So I'm definitely finding this very similar to The Cruel Prince. I'm really enjoying the fact that we're learning about the world as the twins are learning about it. So it's not just like info dumped at you right from the beginning. The writing in this is normal. It's simple. It's not really like bad in any way or not particularly good in any way. I think it's just like kind of like modern language, which I do enjoy because it's not overly complicated. I do find the girls kind of annoying sometimes, and like some of the decisions that they're making, like they're supposed to be practicing like their shield, you know, like their mental shield and stuff, because there are instances where the other Fae can use their powers to basically like mind control them a little bit, and they're not really like spending a lot of time practicing their mental shields. Like if it was me, I would be like cracking down and like practicing my mental shield shields like at all times. Whereas these girls are kind of like, okay, well, we have a night off, so let's go party and drink and do stuff like that. Whereas I just think like you should probably spend a little bit more time on your studies and making yourself stronger, because you have all these powers and you could be something really, really great, but they kind of like focus on the wrong thing, I feel like. But then again, you can't really be like super mad at them about that, because they are 18 years old and it's like the first time that they're kind of like on their own. So they are still really young, and you can't really expect them to be like super mature and like always make the right decision. But besides that, I'm really enjoying my time with this book. I think it's a fast read, and I think I'm gonna really like this series. So I'm gonna keep reading and give you guys an update when I'm done with the book. So I have an update on Zodiac Academy because I finished this book. I'm twisted a little bit this way because the sun is shining that way, so hopefully it doesn't have like little dots on me, I don't think. But anyways, I finished the book and this was entertaining for sure. There's definitely so much bullying going on in this, from like all of the characters to the main characters. Like Tori and Darcy get bullied so much in this book by everybody. Like all the people at the school, they really don't have very many people on their side at all whatsoever, which is kind of annoying that they're not like studying as hard as they can and like practicing their shields and everything as much as they can so that they can defend themselves. Instead, they're going off doing stupid shit. I think that's the most annoying thing to me personally about this book. But besides that, I did really like the world. Like I am really liking the world so far. I love the different types of characters that they have. Like for example, the sirens. I feel like the sirens are the worst of all of them. They are just so cruel, and the things that they do, the way that they siphon power is just so cruel. Like it's worse than the vampires. It's worse than anything, honestly. These girls really need to watch out for sirens. So I personally really hope that neither of them are sirens, but we will see. We still don't know what order they are. Hopefully we'll find out in the next book, but they are approaching the reckoning. I think that's book 3. Yeah, book 3 is the reckoning. The reckoning is basically like this test that they have to pass in order to remain at Zodiac Academy. It's kind of like a midterm kind of thing, I think. I don't think it's like a final to graduate. I think it's kind of like a midterm kind of thing where they have to pass it in order to remain at the academy so that they can continue going to school there. And it's not looking good for these girls because they really don't know how to do anything. They still can't control their powers. They still can't do their shields. They're just like struggling, you know, they're on the struggle bus, and it's kind of annoying because they should be studying. But so far, I think this was a very entertaining book. I don't think it's like the best writing. I don't think like the characters are all that likable. I don't know how this is going to turn into a romance, honestly, because the guys, like the things that the love interest guys were doing, not great. I don't know how that's forgivable. Like, I don't know how they're going to explain that away and how this is going to turn into a romance, but I'm curious to know how the Twisted Sisters wrote that. I mean, I feel like if the girls just kind of like forgive them and just be like, oh, well, you're Fae and like this is your nature and stuff like that, and they just forgive them, I'm going to be a little bit mad. I feel like we need something very major to happen for these people to just like turn their relationships into a romance, because I just don't see how their actions are like forgivable. So I'm very curious how they wrote that, how that's going to evolve, and I'm definitely reading book 2 in February, so I'm very excited. But I think for this one, for my final rating, I'm gonna give it a 3.5 because it wasn't the best thing I've read, but it was still entertaining and I had a good time, and I like the introduction to the world and like the powers and like all the different creatures, but it's definitely not the best thing I've ever read. So I'm gonna settle on a 3.5, and then hopefully the rest of the series is really, really good. actually been a few days since I started this book, the Book of Azrael, and I'm only like just past the halfway point. I made it to chapter 30. It's about page 281, and I will say this is in fact a very slow read. However, it's not bad. Like the book itself isn't bad. Like I am kind of like interested in the world and like enjoying reading it, but it is moving very slowly. So I have also picked up the audiobook, so I'm also listening to it while I read at the same time because it is kind of complicated. I feel like reading it with my eyeballs helps a lot with like the understanding of what's happening, but I also feel like the audiobook is helping me kind of like move along a little bit quicker. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I'm doing, but it is kind of like a slow moving, slow paced book so far at least. So the world building is a little bit confusing for me and the characters are a little bit confusing for me because from my understanding what's happening is there's like a world of monsters and there's like a world of gods and like obviously the human realm and stuff. And the world of the gods kind of like implodes and crashes into the other two worlds, okay? And many people die, a lot of the humans die, and now the gods and the monsters are kind of like living in the same space from my understanding. So they're kind of like sharing the world and like fighting for control because there was like the war of the gods at some point and most of the monsters should have died during that war, but they didn't. And some of them survived and they're called the Igmorthans, okay? So Caden is the leader of the Igmorthans and he has created Diana, who is his second in command, and she is the main character of this story. Okay, so Diana is a monster and she's an Igmorthan and she basically works for Caden. She's basically like his employee, but also kind of like his prisoner in a way, because when she was still human, when she was still mortal before everything happened, her sister was dying and somebody on his side, like on the monster side, had brought her to him or something, and she basically begged him to save her sister's life in exchange for her dedicating herself to be like his, to do with what he wants from now on kind of thing. So she's kind of like an indentured servant. He uses her as a weapon, but they also kind of have like a weird relationship and it's not like super well explained and I'm not sure that I'm really grasping the concept like perfectly, but that's kind of like the gist of it that I'm understanding. Now Caden has a goal of opening up the realms and he's looking for an ancient artifact called the Book of Azrael, and he is having Diana kind of like help him look for it. And while she's doing that, she runs into some of the gods and there's a battle and she ends up almost kind of like killing one of their people, Logan, but decides to bring him back to Sam Kyle, who's like the leader of the gods, and he's also known as Liam, and he's like the male main character in this story, okay? So when she brings him back, she wants to make a truce with the gods because she doesn't want to work with Caden anymore. She makes this blood deal with him where she's going to help him kill Caden and like kind of like bring Caden to him in exchange for protection of her sister, and then she will essentially be like his indentured servant after the fact. So once she brings him Caden and her sister is safe, he will have like possession of her, and then he could do like whatever he wants with her. He could like make her pay for all the crimes she's committed, like all that kind of thing. So this girl is like making blood deals left and right, sacrificing herself for her sister over and over again, like just giving herself up to these like powerful figures. This is like the second one that she's done this to, which honestly is a little bit weird and a little bit annoying, but like she just wants to be a hero and she just wants to sacrifice herself, okay? That's kind of like what I'm getting from this book. And because she used to be a mortal, she has like a mortal heart, and that's kind of like what makes her special, because Caden has tried to make other monsters like her, but he's never succeeded. He has not been able to replicate what he's done with her, and she's basically like his secret weapon. So now Liam has this secret weapon and she's working on Liam's side, like on the god side. She's being kind of a traitor and she's gonna help Liam now find the Book of Azrael. So that's kind of like what's going on in this book. Like it is kind of confusing in terms of like who all the characters are, because there's a lot of different creatures in this world, like very similar to the world of Zodiac Academy. There's like a lot of different types of creatures in this world. There's the monsters, the Igmorthans, there's vampires, there's werewolves, there's banshees, there's like shades, there's the gods, like all sorts of different things, you know? So it's interesting in that sense, but I'm not really sure what everybody's role is quite yet. Not everybody has had a significant role yet in the story, but I'm curious to learn more about them and like how they fit in. But I will say the world building has been a little bit confusing. Like it was introduced in the beginning of the book, but then it's also kind of like piecemealed throughout the story. And I feel like a lot of those important snippets of information are kind of hidden within the writing. So you have to like work hard to like discover them, to like pay attention and pick up on things and kind of like connect things that happened like 100 pages ago to something that you're reading right now, which is honestly, it's like not my favorite thing to do, because sometimes I just want to be told and like I want it to be easy to understand. And with this one, you do kind of have to work hard for it. So that's not my favorite thing about it. I don't like the pacing because it's very, very slow. Everything that I've said is basically everything that's happened to this point in the book, which this literally took me like 4 days to read, and I'm not even 300 pages in. And it's also not for lack of trying, because I am reading this every single night. So especially like with my pace of reading, I'm able to get to usually around 150 pages in a fantasy book, and with this one I'm like struggling to get to 100. Okay, so this one definitely makes you put the effort in, but I think the concept and the plot of this are very interesting. So I'm going to continue reading. I don't know how long it's going to take me to finish the book, but hopefully not another 4 days, but I will update you with my final thoughts when I'm finished. So I finally finished the Book of Azrael. It's been like this last chunk that I've been reading, it did take me like another 2 days to finish. Not as long as the first half because it did pick up quite a bit in that last chunk, which I actually really enjoyed. So she was still on her quest to like continue like looking for the Book of Azrael, and her and Liam kind of like start having this romantic relationship, which is really cute because like, you know, they're in a forced proximity situation because they're looking for the Book of Azrael, okay? And they're kind of like going from person to person and like kind of like learning new information that leads them to like these witches and then leads them to like this other person and like these other characters. And it feels like almost like a scavenger hunt to them, and like they're on this journey to like find this book. So like that part of it I did really like, and I liked their romance. Like I liked their relationship and like how they've like started having a relationship during this process. I thought that was really cute. He's also suffering through like some PTSD related things, and she's helping him through it, and he's got nightmares, and they're kind of like helping each other. So I really like that. And there's also a few kind of like unexpected turns that I never would have guessed would happen, like these twists and stuff, which I thought the author did a great job with, because like honestly I never would have guessed that that's what would have happened. Whereas like with some of the other books like Silver Elite, for example, I was able to guess the twist like pretty soon, pretty early on in the book, and with this one it was just like had no idea that was coming, you know? So I thought that was really good. Also, I really liked the fact that like she can go into people's blood dreams. Like if she drinks their blood, she can go into their dreams and kind of like see their memories and stuff like that. I thought that was a very interesting concept. Like everything about this world is very interesting. I just didn't think it was presented in like the best way possible. It was presented in kind of like a confusing way in the beginning. It dragged on a little bit and the pacing wasn't great in the beginning, but once everything started to like kind of come together towards the end, like it all kind of made more sense, and then I started liking it a lot more. So I'm definitely going to continue this series because number one, I have the series, and number two, I'm actually like interested in the story now, and like I want to know what happens and see their romance actually like progress and stuff. And for this one, I think I'm going to settle on a 3.5 stars and round it up to 4 stars on Goodreads, just because I didn't love the pacing in the beginning and the fact that it was confusing, but the story itself I really liked. So 3.5 stars, rounding up to 4 stars on Goodreads, and that is the last book for this vlog. So just to recap really quickly, we read these 3 books in this vlog. The first one was Silver Elite. I had a really good time with this one. This one was a little bit predictable and nothing too complicated in terms of the world, but I still had a really fun time with this because I loved the female main character and like, you know, the way that she was, but I also didn't really like the decision that she made at the end. But either way, I had a really good time with this one. It was an overall fun read and I rated it 4 stars. Then the next book we read was Zodiac Academy, The Awakening, the first book in the Zodiac Academy series, and this is another one that was like really fun. I had a good time with it. Again, nothing too revolutionary, nothing groundbreaking, but this one I really enjoyed the world building and how it was presented in like a very digestible way, because you're learning the world along with the characters and you don't really have to like decipher anything and like find anything out, and I think that's the best way to start a series. It definitely pulled me in right from the beginning. I really like the characters and I'm curious to know how they're going to resolve this whole like bully situation with the love interests in the future books, with just like the school in general, and how these 2 girls are going to come into their power. So I can't wait to continue the series. I'm very excited for the next book, which I'll be reading in February, and this is another one that I rated 3.5 stars. And then finally, you just heard my thoughts on the Book of Azrael, and this is a 3.5 star as well. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you made it to this part in the video, please leave me a skull emoji for the Book of Azrael, and let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. I'm really curious to know. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.